Welcome to Mission Evolution Radio Show with Gwilda Wiyaka, bringing together today's leading experts to uncover ever-deepening spiritual truths and the latest scientific developments in support of the evolution of humankind. For more information on Mission Evolution Radio with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit www.missionevolution.org. And now, here's the host of Mission Evolution, Miss Gwilda Wiyaka.
Many feel powerless, like they're just spinning their wheels and going nowhere fast. Could the answer be as simple as we're not embracing spiritual intelligence or living our true design? Mission Evolution Radio TV show is coming to you around the world on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. With us this hour to explore the power of faith and life purpose is Dean Wilkinson. Dean is the author of Live Like It's True, an Epoch Work Founder, a blue-collar entrepreneur. He built and sold several multi-million-dollar home service companies and designed a franchise system with over 100 locations. As a trainer, troubleshooter, and leader, he learned that mindset determines success. His website, epochwork.com. Dean, thanks for joining us on Mission Evolution.
Thank you for having me, Gwilda.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. Nice to have you back.
Thanks.
So you're an Epoch Work founder. What is Epoch Work?
Well, Epic Work exists to help people align to their, original human design. So we work in the trades and the home service business with frontline people, with leaders, with managers to help them get and leverage their innate spiritual intelligence to perform better at work and at life. Right. So it's focused on work because workplaces is that place where I've been. Right. I've been an entrepreneur for so long, but there's so much growth available there that we decided to tap into that as people were leaving church and not having those growth spaces. We decided to say, hey, let's make work, since we spend so much of our time there. Let's make that a growth space.
A growth space? Is that what you said?
Yes.
I like that. We need more growth spaces. Absolutely,
Yes,
we do.
yes.
You state most problems in the world come from misunderstandings about what God is. That's pretty strong. What do you mean?
We have been told so many different things about God. It's dependent on your background, where you came from. And with the advent of the internet, it just became more confusing because those who are seekers started seeking and started finding all these different perspectives and teachings, and truth resonates, right? And when you come across this, that truth that resonates in you starts to have you doubt your version of God. Then it starts to get so confusing that you give up. So what I think happens is that there's something called cognitive dissonance, and that's an internal conflict. It's this idea of two ideas, two separate ideas that are opposing each other. How do I hold both of those? How do I keep space for both of those? And what happens is that so many things from life and trauma and ACEs, all those things growing up told our hearts, told our souls, this isn't really what you're made for. Everything that was negative, everything that hurt you. And so we started developing this cognitive dissonance that has long-term effects on the way we see clearly, the way we think, the way we act, the way we show up at work, the way we show up in life. When we're not regulated, when our neurobiology isn't regulated, we get off kilter. And science has proven that. So I think that the confusion about God has created this long-term cognitive dissonance that is affecting all of our society.
So let me see if I've got this right. When you were brought up with a particular viewpoint or a particular teaching about what God is, okay, then that's set as you're growing up. But then when you get on the internet and you find something and it resonates and you goosebump, okay, it's just really resonating with you,
Yeah.
but it doesn't add up to what you were brought up with. Is that what's creating cognitive dissonance here?
Yeah, that's one thing that's causing cognitive dissonance. And then when you go to search, you see so many people spouting the truth, their truth, and it sounds true, And it just adds to the complexity because there is no way to really define what source is, what God is, but we're
So,
always trying to.
so we try to put it in a little box, and every place it oozes out of the corners, that's causing dissonance.
Yeah. And
Ah.
we even try big boxes, it's like, so God, does God care about my business enterprise, right? Does he care about, how successful we are? Does he care about whether I'm anxious or I'm worried? And we find out that we're still anxious and worried. So, we might pray and it gives us some relief, or we might journal and it gives us some relief, or we might stomp off and scream at the sky and it gives us some relief. But what really works, right? What is a belief in God that allows you to flow with the way the world is working, what your reality is, that aligns up so that you can stay in flow in that?
Okay, so that seems to me like we're going to have to expand those boxes into shipping crates, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, what does belief in a higher spirit have to do with manifestation?
I think that, we all create our own reality. And, that begins with, how we think, what we allow our minds to perceive, what we allow our body to feel. And that energetic exchange there is creating our reality. So would you repeat the question again? Because I got just a little off.
That's okay. I was wondering, what does belief in a higher spirit have to do with manifestation?
So if we look at that, we are creators created to create, created by a creator to create. We realize that our role in life is to create things. And we normally do that through our work. And so when most people manifest, that's what they're thinking. What can I manifest to make my life better so that I can thrive? Because we are designed to thrive. Our neurobiology, our physical bodies are designed to thrive and keep growing. And so if we don't have a belief in or a higher power, or we don't stay aligned to that higher spirit, then it's easy to get off when we see our reality actually tweaking us to get back in line. And so we start doubting whether there's this higher power guiding us.
Is there a higher power guiding us, or are we just in a strange soup here bubbling around?
Well, it depends on what box you're coming from, right?
There you go. I've got my shipping crate ready. Okay.
um, yeah, I think we are. I mean, I think there is, and that's my experience. And I went on a deep search for how does this world work, because it wasn't working for me, and it had to come to the end of my rope and say, you know what, something's not meshing here. I'm following all the rules, I'm being obedient, I'm doing all the tasks, I'm doing all the rituals, but still not working in my life. And when I see that, like, Jesus comes in and what he teaches, now, not what's been taught about Jesus, but what he teaches, he shows us that that there is. If you follow this, you'll actually experience and see God. And it's a pure-hearted seeking after either God itself or your goal itself. And you start to see how powerfully you can create when everything's in a line. And so that convinces me over and over again that there's some higher power, because doors open. The universe works for you when you start working, right? And that has convinced me over the years that there is some higher power guiding what I'm doing, if
So,
it's aligned to the way the world is designed to work. Go ahead.
no, I didn't mean to interrupt. So, I like the definition of sin as being a separation from the way life works.
Mm,
Are we on the same page here?
we are. Yes.
Okay. And so when you're separated from the way life works, you're separated from God, if you would. Are we on
Hmm.
the same page there?
Yep.
Okay. So what's going on in the world today?
See, that's the thing. That's where I get back to what's going on inside of us. because what we see in the world today is a manifestation of what's going on inside each individual involved with what we see. That's how powerful we are as creators. And so when we see, when we're off the mark, when we sin, so to speak, when we're not living according to the universal laws, giving and receiving, unity, there's oneness. When we're not doing that, we're going off track. We are off the mark, and we're going to feel it, and we're going to experience it. And that's good, right? That's feedback for us to realize, hey, this isn't the way I want my world to work. And I either participate in that or I don't, right?
So where can you find that reflection if you're trying to realign with the way life works?
Where can you find the reflection?
The reflection to align yourself with, if you want to realign with the way life works.
Well, I always use the Epic Way, the thing, the human ascension system that, I think Jesus taught, and he taught it in the Beatitudes. So I use that to keep me guided. But here's the reality of it, right? This is our God has so many fractals. And so we get to see it in every single person. There's a reflection from them to us, right? Every single problem is a catalyst for our alignment, to get back in alignment with the way the world works. And then, there's the practices that you do, the journaling, the quiet moments, the getting silent and listening to that inner voice inside. And where am I off? And when you do that with a heart that is open, and when you approach people and problems with a heart that's open, a mind that's open, and the knowledge that, hey, the universe is probably opening doors for me here. Let me see where. I think you start to see it everywhere.
So what's the first sign we get that we are not on track?
Oh, frustration, pain, anxiety, fear, guilt. Those are the first signs, if you're talking about like inner signs. And outer signs, I think, are things aren't working. What you're trying to work towards, it's not working.
It's not happening.
A relationship is blowing up. You're arguing. You're raising your voice at somebody you care about. It's those are signs that it's not working.
It seems like that's what's going on in the world at large. When did we get so off course as a culture?
Well, I have my theories on this, right? It's I don't want to blame, I don't want to bash religion. Religion itself brought some good things into the world. But man, it twisted up this message. It twisted up who God was, who Jesus was in the Western world. And so we got off course right there when it started being about greed and paying for sins and eternal damnation or heaven after this life. And, it started getting off. And as we started to gain knowledge and we didn't self-correct, it got further off. And as we've gone through the years,
we're going to have to take a station break. I'm sorry to leave the
That's okay.
But Dean and I will return shortly, so don't you go away. This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. If you don't have faith, can you build what you want? With us this hour discussing faith and manifestation is Dean Wilkinson. Dean is the author of Live Like It's True. Dean, we were talking about where we got off course with faith when it stopped supporting us and we ended up with this big modern mess we're in. Would you continue, please?
I was, going to finish with that. It's almost no one's fault, but we've gotten off course as a race, as a human race, because we allowed it. We lost sight of who we were, what we were here to do. That's the three main questions everybody asks: who am I? What am I here to do? And why am I here? And when we can answer those questions in alignment with how the world works, we stay on course as long as we keep answering the questions, because we're always evolving. So I think that when we started to get the intelligence. We started to gather the data. All the world's knowledge started coming to us. All the world's religions, all that started coming together. So many people stayed stuck in what they were believing because it scared them. Because that core dissonance, like you asked me earlier, this belief about God is so core to who we are as human beings. Since we are all creators, created to create, little gods, right? When we start confusing that, everything starts to wobble. And the more confused it gets, the roots and the weeds all start to just sprout up, right? And so we have to understand that to get back on course, we just have to open up to new possibilities and then take radical ownership of what we believe, our stories, how we show up in the world. And then remember, first and foremost, that who we are, little gods created to create. And then our reality starts to shift.
And yet we've been brought up to not trust in what we are. We've been brought up believing, many of us, that we're intrinsically wrong and have to make ourselves right. And that goes back to your religion thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're born with sin, and how can we move beyond that so that we can expand and open in new ideas? Because there's this underlying fear that if we expand, we're going to see how little we are and how little we have to offer.
Well, to answer that now, how do we do that? First, we want to. We've got to decide we want to. We don't want to be stuck in these small stories anymore. We don't want to be stuck in our current situation. We don't want to be stuck, even if, like with me, everything was going great. I had all kinds of money, but something wasn't right in there. So we don't want to feel stuck. And so that's the impetus. Like the entry into the kingdom of heaven, Jesus said, was when you're poor in spirit. And when you really look at the meanings of that means I am sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? So that desire for more, knowing that is not a fault. Like once somebody told me sometimes, can't you just be satisfied? And as I realized that, hold it, we're not designed to be satisfied. We're designed to thrive. We're designed to keep growing. That changes everything. So it's keeping that first and foremost in your mind. But at the end of the day, you've got to decide that I don't want to do this anymore like that.
Don't want to do what anymore?
I don't want to stay stuck. I don't want to stay frustrated. I don't want to stay in the current situation. I want my business to grow. I want my relationships to grow. I want my own life to go. I want to make a bigger impact. Those are all desires put in you by your creator.
Diametrically opposed to those desires is the fear of letting something be dismantled, isn't it? Because if you can't dismantle what isn't working, how can you build what does?
Speak a little bit more on that. Are you talking sort of, you got to deconstruct?
Yeah, because, so far we've been talking about building more, doing more, being more. But sometimes doesn't that require backing up a little bit and saying, well, I built this, but it doesn't align with who I am or what I believe in. It needs to come apart to free up that energy to build something different.
Yes, we got a term at Epoch Work called restory. And and that's where you do back up, right? You really look at your stories. You can't, in reality, you're not doing this like all the time, right? You're not going to get all your stories all at once. I'm going to sit down and go on a weekend retreat. I'm going to get all my stories that are keeping me stuck, limited beliefs, whatever you want to call them, right? You're not going to do that, but you can see them happening in your life. You can see them playing out. And so you need to compare, or always not compare to what you want to what you're getting, right? But also keep your mind open, keep that poor in spirit place, stay open-minded about what you're experiencing and let it reflect on you. And don't let the feelings of guilt or shame or fear stop you from looking, and don't let them stop you from feeling. And if you feel these things, and you will start to dismantle the stories when you see they're not aligned to truth. They're just not. That one person is stronger than another inside, right? And it's keeping that inside out focus, not necessarily the reality outside, what's going on. Because it's inside is the kingdom of God. Inside is fulfillment. Inside is where we really thrive.
So are you suggesting that ultimately what we experience outside is simply a reflection of what we believe inside?
I believe it is. Okay, that's the way I've, as in all my spiritual studies and what I've read and what I've tried to put together. I believe that that's what all the spiritual teachers were teaching. That that kingdom of heaven is inside, and if you want it on the outside, create it, right? But you got to tap into it here first. That's its deepest roots, and that's where it starts to grow, and then overflows to you.
So again, given the state of the world, there's not enough of that going on, I would have to say. How do you think that we can, in mass, start to shift to where we're creating something that's in alignment with the way life works?
Well, you're doing it, right? Your listeners are interested in doing this. The people I work with are interested in doing this, and I think if there was one easy answer to that, where we could all get together at some big convention and really and pour it on, But I think it's changing, Gwilda. I see what's happening in the world right now as we speak, today and this week. And I sit there and say, oh my gosh. But I've also heard spiritual teachers saying this year is going to be all kinds of changes. And we're going through some cycle in this period where there's going to be so much disruption. And so, for instance, you get, Donald Trump comes on the scene and he starts making changes in the world that's changing the way the world views itself. And so do we have to think about it like, how do we do it, or how do we participate in what's going on without losing our sense of peace and joy, without losing our love for one another? I think that's the key.
And deprogramming, like you said, take those stories, dismantle them so that they
Yeah,
don't control you and you can
yeah,
expand your horizons, if you
yeah.
will.
One at a time, one at a time.
So, what drove you personally to seeking that higher power?
I as a boy, it wasn't around me. I grew up, just no one talked about that kind of thing to me. But there was still a sense of God in there, and I've always held on to that. Like I didn't count that as non-important in my life. That sense of God is somehow was guiding me even through the mess that I was going in. And my family was very dysfunctional, and alcoholics and sexual abuse and all that stuff in there. And I knew somehow, right, when I look back on it, that wasn't normal. That's not the way that people thrive. That's not the way I want to live. And so that began a search that started in the Christian church. And I've always taken things super serious. I get in, I commit to it. Okay, I'm going to do it. And I thought I was doing it, but then one day, after 10 years of doing the whole Christian life, and I was doing it so perfectly, I lost everything. A cousin betrayed me, and all of a sudden, this business that I had built that was so good had lost it all. And I was so mad. I had a Lieutenant Dan moment, from Forrest Gump, where I was challenging God, like, God, damn, it was just like this idea of God. And there was this little voice that came in, and it was so innocent, so directive. Dean, you haven't given me everything that you're saying you're giving me. And and it was so loving. I wasn't chastised by it. And I was like, what's that? So I went looking through the Bible, and then I got confused again. And then I started slimming it down to only thing I was paying attention to was what Jesus said. And when I started seeing what Jesus said and saying, what would that look like to live like it's true? What would happen there? And I started to think about that, and then started to do it some, and started to see results out of it. And so it's the desire for more in my life, the desire for better, the desire to thrive is what ultimately drove me to find out how the world works, because I was tired of it working against me.
Or at least feeling like it is,
Yeah,
right?
feeling like it was, but it was always working for me. But that's the way I thought back then.
When we aren't cooperating with it, it can't do it on its own, right?
Well,
So, what's your view of religion versus spirituality?
religion is doctrine. Religion is somebody telling you what to believe, what to do, how to practice it. And spirituality is the opposite of that, but it still has that core concept of seeking God. And that's the good thing about religion, right? Because the idea was to seek God. It's just, we didn't do it healthily. So with spirituality, let's do it openly. Let's do it with our whole hearts. Let's open our minds and our souls to this. Let's open our minds to science and other beliefs and other systems. And so that's what I think spirituality is. It holds all the intelligences that we have. It's like an umbrella over emotional intelligence, physical, and mental intelligence. It encompasses all of it, and it makes it grow. So to me, that's the difference between, spirituality is something that's thriving, where religion feels dead or now.
So when we're moving from a more dogmatic approach and graduating into one might feel a little unguided if we're trying to listen to the voice within,
Yes.
hanging in the wind here. How do you move beyond that?
I know this feeling. This is a feeling when I became unguided, that it twisted my world up. My group of friends, the way I thought about things, the way what I read, what I watched on TV, it upended a lot of things for me. And it feels like you're lost, like you're sort of floating in the middle of nowhere and no one's around to help you. Well, that happens to be poor in spirit, right? That also happens to be that same soul situation that you need to be in. So to be unguided it's okay, right? There are moments, right? You think about the hero's journey, and you think about all the great stories that we've had. There are moments when you are alone and you're unguided by other people. It's seemingly like that. But when you're connected to source, to the spirit, something else is guiding you. But you've got to be quiet. You've got to quiet the fear, and you've got to quiet the guilt and shame so you can hear that voice.
Those are huge: fear, guilt, and shame, and we'll pick up on those on the other side of a station break. Dean and I will be right back to continue our discussion. So you stay right there. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org. Is intelligence only a function of the brain? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. With us, delving into the many forms of intelligence, is Dean Wilkinson. His website, epochwork.com. Dean, we were talking about guilt and shame and how they can actually interfere with our ability. A lot of the teachings that we've lived by growing up, and religious teachings, is you have to have guilt, you have to have shame, and yet you're telling me that these very things are crippling us. Would you continue with that, please?
The story, as it was taught to most Westerners, at least, was, that Eve ate the apple, and Adam and Eve sinned. They got casted out, and they covered themselves with fig leaves and casted out of the garden, and like somebody was really there, right? And so that story has shame and fear built into it. Just built everything. I'm going to get cast out, and I'm going to be, I can't even be naked, right? So what I started to see is whenever my path to God and during that religious time was so full of guilt, when I was journaling on a regular basis, and I didn't notice it when I was journaling, right? I thought I was being pious. I thought I was being good. I thought I was being spiritual. I thought I was seeking God. But when I went back and looked at those, all I saw was guilt. I'm so sorry I did this. Please forgive me for this. And it was just ongoing until one day I had an experience where I was thinking about how much I loved my son, who was always getting into trouble. He was causing all kinds of havoc at school. He was getting kicked out of school, and he was only 10, right? So, but I realized how much I loved him. And no matter what, it was just love. And I thought to myself, well, how could I love him when he's not even being obedient? And then it was like, there was that voice again that I heard before, said, that's the way I love you, Dean. And I was like, oh, you don't care? about this obedience thing. And so that felt so real that I started to search to see if it was true. Right. So I started to see, does the Bible teach this? And oh my gosh, it's all over the place in there. And I don't know how we say that we're Christians or we're religious, and we've taken that Adam and Eve story and we've personified it. And then we say we read the Bible, but it's not in the rest of the Bible. It's not in there that you should ever feel guilt or shame. It's all been, it's not there. It's about a process of ascension, that we came into this life. We chose this life, maybe, right? That's another big question. And if we chose this life, we chose it for the catalyst that's going to serve us to help us grow and thrive as a soul into eternity, I think. So
rather than
get rid of the shame and the fear if you can.
They're out of here. So after we start to grow, we have to set aside a lot of the rules and regulations that we've been indoctrinated into, it sounds like.
Yes, we do. And it's not always easy because they're so deeply set. They're neurobiologically, they're just patterns. They become habits of thinking. And so we have to destruct them. We have to pay attention to them, see what's going on, and then start seeing if they're true, start taking them apart. Do you want it to be true? Because here's the reality, I think, at the end of the day, that we get to choose what's true for us. When you look at the 7 billion perspectives, everybody's got a different one, right? And you sit there and say, well, hold on a minute. If that's true, then can I choose my truth? Do I need to argue that somebody else is in the wrong or in the right? Or can I choose the truth that I want to live with? And so I think that's pieces of doing that.
So when we're in the process of trying to get out of those little boxes and looking for our shipping crate, if you will, do you find that embracing disparate viewpoints can help on that path?
Absolutely. It's so there's another thing that happens when you're full of guilt and fear and shame. There's another thing that happens. You judge others. You judge things because, you need to judge it, right? We were designed that way to keep us out of danger when the lions were chasing us across the prairie, right? But we don't have to do that anymore. And so what we've done is we judge every situation, whether it be sitting in traffic or a car cuts in front of us, or a person says something to us, or, somebody forgets to call. We're judging. But here's the thing, that comes from judging ourselves so harshly because of that dissonance, because we're not in that state of flow. We're not in that state of alignment that we're designed to thrive in. And so I think it gets off track right in there. We have to, we don't have to, but we get to choose to look at truth as from our perspective, and then figure out if it works for us. Does it make us feel good? Does it work in the outer reality? Does it get me closer to where I want?
It sounds like the first step would be admitting that you don't know, and starting the search versus judging what's right, what's wrong, what's good and bad, and then casting blame on anyone that doesn't agree with you. That seems like a trap.
Well, it is, right? And you think about the cool thing about this Epoch Way, and what I found that from when Jesus first said, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is here," right? He was going from town to town. That's what the Bible states he was saying, right? So he was just stating that statement, and then he went into, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed being the happiest a human can be." I think we got lost in what repent really means. Repent means to open your mind. It means to change your thinking. It means well, here's the Greek meaning would have been, hey, you just passed what you're looking for. You need to look back a little bit, because what you're looking for is right there. And so the idea is that we've got to quit judging all this, judging ourselves, and saying, if this is happening, it's happening for my good. So how is it happening for my good? And then set and wait for an answer. I found 24, 48 hours at the most, but you'll have an answer.
Dean, how do those answers come? I mean, is it a booming voice from above? A lot of
Oh
us are kind
God,
of
we're gonna deal with this now. No.
it seems like a lot of people are in question and they're sitting there waiting. How's it going to show up? I mean, and are blocked to hearing it in the first place. How can you recognize that the information you're getting isn't just your mind's voice?
So it could be difficult for a beginner to do that, but let me bring it down to think about where do you get quiet, right? So say you don't have a meditation or a prayer or a journaling practice or anything like that. Thing is, you can go out in nature and start to see answers to things. I got a lot of my answers about God out in nature, looking at trees, the way they fell, the way forests were thriving, but it looked like there was a bunch of, it's like something's going on there, right? So I believe we've got to open up and our eyes, our heart, and our mind to all the ways that these answers come in, because it's going to come in. It's going to come in through people. It's going to come in through creation, and it's going to come in through spiritual texts. Sometimes just book texts, right? It's like just regular books, leadership books or something like that. It'll come in. You'll feel those moments, and I call those epic moments. Those are moments where you have a chance to really redirect your future, but you're going to have to redefine your past first. And when you do that, when you redefine what that means and say, I'm going towards this other future, you start to be able to notice, right? Be aware of, stay awake to all the ways that this creation, not just nature, but the humans in it, the animals in it, the knowledge in it, is speaking to you. And you'll feel it's true when it's
So
your truth.
if we redirect, get in there and go, this isn't working. I feel like I'm limited. I'm opening up. Speak to me. Okay.
Mhm.
Once we do that, are you saying that everything in life is giving us messages as to how to get on that path?
Almost, but stay open to it. It could come from anywhere. I call them open doors, right? God opens doors through, synchronicities is the way a lot of people refer to them, or coincidences if you don't believe in synchronicities, right? But I have found that the universe works for you as you start to ask those questions. And I'll tell you, anyone I've coached or my own life, and I bet you could probably say it too. When you start asking from your heart, from those deep questions, you start to see answers. I used to have a rule of three. All right, God, I'm a little stubborn. So show me once. Okay, I'm paying attention. Show me twice. I'm really paying attention. Oh, on third time I'll act. And then I started saying, well, why aren't I acting on the first one? Why don't I just do it now, right? And I started to be able to trust that, what we normally call intuition, and seeing how correct and how right it was and how good it felt. And sometimes it's scary, but that's where courage comes in. It's not that we won't ever have fear. It's where do we apply courage to what we're doing next? So,
I know indigenous peoples all over the planet have used omenology by using synchronicity.
hmm.
Like I happened to synchronistically see a raven sitting on a branch. Now, is that just a raven sitting on a branch, or does it have meaning for me? What have I been wondering lately? And then start lining it up that way. They've been doing that for years with great effect.
Hmm.
Are there some ways that we can re-engage in that activity so that we have that guidance as well?
I think it's rather simple. I mean, it is so simple. It is saying you want divine guidance in your life. That's it. It might even be, God, show me that you're real. And what, look around, keep paying attention, because something's going to happen.
Watch out for that thunderbolt.
Watch out, um, there, it starts as simple as that, but to keep it up is to stay childlike, to stay curious is a word that's thrown about, but it's not practiced that much. Okay, we stick into what we know so often, but
Or my
stay like
mind's
a
made
child
up. Don't
first.
confuse me with the facts, kind of thing.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
and it's realizing that you don't. It's not about being right or wrong. It's not about um, the if you see the raven on the branch and that speaks to you, yes, that is it. It's you decide, because you're the creator of your creation. So create that. And does it hurt anything for you to do that?
Not unless you take a shot at the raven. I mean,
Well, yeah, unless you're shooting the raven for some reason, but it doesn't hurt, right? No one knows but you that's going on with this. And as you start to see those things and respond to them and take the chance, take the leap, you start to refine your intuitive processes. Your brain starts to actually work with your gut and your heart. And when that starts to happen, you start to really start to trust that you are guided and that some sign is going to come. And again, it's not about it being right or wrong. It's about, how does it feel? Does it feel expansive or does it contract? If it contracts, stay away. If it feels expansive, take another step.
well, we're going to have to take a step into yet another station break. Please stay with us as Dean and I continue to explore manifestation. This is Mission Evolution, www.missionevolution.org, and we're coming to you on the X Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. Are you in alignment with yourself? This is Mission Evolution, missionevolution.org. We're continuing our discussion with Dean Wilkinson. Dean, what is the Epic Way? We've been talking around it.
Yeah, I call it a faith that works. Okay, so it's a system of belief that I've taken from that repent, for the kingdom of heaven is here, and used all the Jesus words until he said, you are the salt and light of the world. And I've taken that and looked at the original meaning. Is that I see a human ascension spiral. I see him saying, you want to be the happiest you can be as a human being, follow this path. And here's the thing, you're going to follow this path whether you want to be happy or not. But you could stay stuck in the stuckness of the world. But if you open up your possibilities, and I'll state it here in different language, right? But this is following that idea. If you open up the possibilities and take radical ownership of what you're creating in the world, and always remember that you are a creator created to create, and then designed to thrive, and you do whatever it takes to thrive, and you connect authentically to your higher power and others around you, you will see God. You will create win-win-wins in your life. Win for you, win for those around you, and win for the world you live in. That's the first 6 steps of the Epic Way. Sounds, super simple, right? But people to believe it, to actually and put it into practice, it takes a leap of faith, right? Because these are universal laws inside of there. They're not something that we can grab a hold of. They're not like this microphone. They're invisible. And so we have to just trust them, try them out, see if they work. And that's why work is such a part of, epic work. And the Epic Way is just a way to get you to be able to do epic work in the world. And so I think that's the Epic Way. It is something to keep me and those who follow it grounded and guided, so I can keep going whenever I'm in a mess, whenever I do trip and fall, whenever I do lose that passion, or I do lose that feeling, or I do lose that voice, because we all do. That's the human struggle.
How much of a toe tripper is it when we have an idea of what we think we want, but we are creating solutions to assumed problems?
Toe tripper. Well, I look at them as walls, right? They're doors that are locked. I've taken, they're normally called problems. Something's not participating with me. Somebody's not participating with me in what I want. So that's a problem. Well, what I started to just view them as is problems are opportunities. They're opportunities for me. Yeah, it sticks and it's frustrating, and I've got to deal with it inside, get back to peace, get back to non-judgment, get back to loving whatever that is, and loving the world, being at peace with my current reality. And from there, I've always gotten a direction. Oh, if this is for me, then this is showing me X about myself. That's what it's doing. And it's showing me in the inside of that person. So I know that now. So what can we do now to work together? Because ultimately that's what we're all here for, to work together, right? And how can we work together to get through this problem? And I found that, and then I'll take a minute to say, where am I supposed to go with this problem? Where am I supposed to do? I'm an entrepreneur, so I'm always got these thoughts going. I have these initiatives that I know would work in the world. But man, the software and the equipment and the people, they don't necessarily agree with me, right? They agree with it, but they don't actually know how to put it into practice. And so do I give up on that? No. I'm like, I've hit a wall here, or a closed door. I know it's good, so I'm going to stay open to what my next step is. And then I
And how
follow that next step.
and how often is the door created by some unaware judgment that you have inside?
Oh, well, 99.9% of the time.
You gotta love that. No place to point the finger. Doggone it, Dean.
Yeah.
Dean, let's talk about intelligence.
Okay.
Everybody thinks of intelligence as a function of the mind, okay?
Mm.
But you're talking about emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence. What Let's go into that a little bit. What are they?
Well, we've got our human intelligences, and you could probably go a myriad of ways, but let's just keep it simple. Your physical intelligence, your body keeps a score, your body pays attention. You got your mental, your IQ intelligence. That's the knowledge that you've gained and the experience you've gained that is stored there. And then you have emotional intelligence, those feelings. What is going on inside of me? Those are giving you feedback about the way to go in the world. And then encompassing all that, like I said earlier, is the spiritual intelligence, the idea of I'm here for a bigger purpose. I'm here to make a difference in the world. I'm here to make an impact. I'm here to grow my soul. So all of that is intelligence. But here's where real intelligence is, in my opinion. It's created by the creator. It's all out there for us. It's all. I don't know if you've ever read the book One Mind, but it's the idea that the way it was pictured on the book cover was almost like a neural net over the whole world, right? And that this neural net holds all the knowledge that's even possible to know. And that whenever you start asking questions, when you start opening up yourself to that, you get, let's just keep going with this neural net idea, you get downloads for it. And when your whole self-intelligence is seeking higher intelligence, that's where I'm saying you get that. So intelligence itself is whatever the creator was, because I don't think it's a who, right? Whatever the creator was that set this thing in motion. We don't know when it was or what, but when it was set in motion, he put all these laws and this beautiful world together, right? There's so much beauty here and so much that we can't explain, that I think that becomes the intelligence that we can tap into. It's not what we can store here, because what you store here is like a computer disconnected from the internet. But what is higher intelligence is like connected to the internet and Chat GPT, and it just, whatever you want to know, you can kind of know.
So you sound like you're talking about, some people have called it the Akashic Records. I know ancient India, I believe it was, called it Indra's Net. Is it the same thing?
Yeah, I've heard it called both of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But do we have to be in alignment with ourselves in order to make that connection? Because if we're all jumbled up inside, how do we connect?
So we can be all jumbled up inside at the end of our rope, and we'll connect. We'll get, just like I did that.
Or sometimes it drives you to it, right?
It drives you to it, right? It drives you to your knees, so to speak. But you can do it on purpose without it getting so far down to the end of your rope, right? And I think it's, I think it's that simple. I think it's just the desire to do that, desire to connect to that, the desire to not stay where you are. I just think it's the answers come. And so that discordant feeling, that dissonance we feel, listen right before you go to sleep, or right when you wake up, before the dissonance starts, you'll start to hear that, right? But don't worry about it if you are, but also practice mind calming, peaceful situations, nature, journaling, praying, whatever it takes.
Well, it seems like the way things are out there is coming at it inside out and backwards. We think we have to generate from here answers rather than bring them in from the net. Um, and this is obviously limited. And what kills me is we go to school and we learn all these things that have already been decided,
Yeah.
okay? But we don't learn how to hook up to the source of the information. Um, and the more we listen to the way things have already been decided, the more limited we become. If we are able to turn that around, if you will, how does it look different?
Oh, it's beautiful. Okay, so it's realizing that, it's all of us alive today. We were indoctrinated in a school system that was built for another time, right? So it starts to get beautiful when you start to open up to other possibilities. It's when you start to realize that you were made for more, to create more, to experience more, to have joy and peace. What we call a prosperous peace here. When you say that's what you're supposed to be, you will you will start untangling all by itself. It'll start to do that. Did that answer your question?
It did, and it seems like the progression that we've been on from the dogmatic way you and I were brought up in school to now the kids have access. They take laptops everywhere they go and they're trained on them and they, find the information off the net. But those are training wheels for finding information from the net, aren't they?
Yes. For now, anyway, right? No telling what's going to happen with with the AI and stuff. But it's always going to be limited. Whatever man can create is going to be limited to. But we're getting closer to not having to worry about what we were taught in school and what we need to untangle from. Um, we're not there yet. I'm not saying we are, but understanding that that's where anybody listen to this, that's where you've come from, and knowing that the knowledge you had and that you might have paid for, you went to school for, it's not that it's bad. It's just probably not all true, and it's
Very limited,
definitely
at
not
least.
spiritually true, right? It's not the way the world works. It's what you were force fed, what you got to pass tests, so these facts, and what a mess that has created, in our education system and the way we educate our children and the way we were educated. So we just need to open up to possibilities. How can we do that different? How could we use the technology that we're seeing expand around us at rapid speeds? How can we use that to educate ourselves, keep curiosity alive, keep purpose alive, keep joy and peace in the front of our minds, so that when we encounter one another, right, that's what comes out. That's the energy we give. And it's so simple, it's almost discarded, because it's everybody thinks we have to gain all this knowledge and follow all these spiritual paths. No, none of the spiritual teachers ever said that, right? It's so simple. We need to be like little children again, and thinking about that, where we were educated and where we lost our little childlikeness, was somewhere in that 4th and 5th grade, is what the experts say. And know that we need to go back there. We need to go back there.
Well, Dean, we're almost out of time, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask you, what's your mission?
My mission is to make God and work cool again, in a nutshell, right? So it's to help people. I've been around so many people that have struggled to not overcome ACEs, their adverse childhood experiences or betrayals or addictions, and I see it's not necessary. And so I just want to help people see your suffering is not necessary. And the path is easier than you think. And you need it sometimes just simply stated, and somebody to guide you along the way, to maybe knock on your noggin a little bit and say, open that thing up a little bit and tune in.
Well, Dean, thank you for being the one that's knocking.
Thank you, Gwilda.
We are out of time. Dean, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing
Welcome.
your wisdom. Our guest this hour has been Epoch Work founder Dean Wilkinson. He's author of Live Like It's True.